When you look at the organization, the people behind Black Lives Matter, what do you see?
There is no people. That's the problem. There is nobody behind Black Lives Matter. Who's the president of Black Lives Matter? Who are the people that are running Black Lives Matter?
A woman,
when you try to
a
question,
self-described Marxist.
A Marxist. When you try to ask them, where is this money going? They have no offices. There is no organized cell, right? I mean, it's literally a terrorist organization. This is what you would expect if you were looking into the finances of ISIS.
What do you think of the rioting that's happening across the country? It continues to the day that we're speaking now.
I think that, either I have a crystal ball and I can see into the future, or this was the most predictable thing to possibly happen in the midst of an election cycle. I mean, I've been saying this, shouting this for the last 3 years. Get ready, Black America, because in 2020, we're going to watch Black people die. We're going to be told, that race issues are the worst that they've ever been. And we're going to be used like pawns, to further power for a political party that really is going to leave us behind if they get that power back. And it's happened. You can go back and watch me speaking for the last 3 years, and I've said this, and it's happened exactly as I said it's going to happen. These protests are remarkably funded. I don't care who you speak to. Nobody has the time or the patience to riot for months straight because one person was killed unarmed by a police officer. It's everywhere. It's everywhere you go. I mean, you even saw it. They were protesting in the UK about George Floyd.
Yes.
So this is way bigger. Antifa, it's organized. I mean, these people they've got bricks, they've got Molotov cocktails. We're looking at an organized cell of terrorism that's hiding behind the idea that they're trying to further civil rights. So I view Black Lives Matter as a terrorist group. I view Antifa as a terrorist group.
Yes.
And I think it's ridiculous to me that you have so many people that don't see that.
Now, as all things are in politics, it's condensed into two dimensions, of course. So when we talk about Black Lives Matter, I'm not aware of anybody who disagrees with the sentiment that Black Lives Matter. But the movement itself, there is disagreement. But to express that disagreement in public is to be construed as someone who doesn't care about Black lives. In other words, it's a strange situation you find yourself in. When you look at the organization, the people behind Black Lives Matter, what do you see?
There is no people. That's the problem. There is nobody behind Black Lives Matter. Who's the president of Black Lives Matter? Mm-hmm. Who are the people that are running Black Lives Matter?
A woman, a self-described Marxist.
A Marxist. When you try to ask them, where is this money going? They have no offices. There is no organized cell, right? I mean, it's literally a terrorist organization. This is what you would expect if you were looking into the finances of ISIS, right? There are no answers. There are a couple of people that say that they're leading it, but they have no employees. And that's the problem right now. We know that in the week that George Floyd died, they raised $50 million. Where did that money go? Are there schools? If Black Lives Matter, are we attacking illiteracy rates? What are they doing in the community that they've been able to raise $50 million under an LLC structure? They are not a 501c3 organization. That's the scary stuff, and nobody's being meant to answer these questions.
So whatever the mystery is behind their organization, you laid out some of it. There's no mystery to at least one of their goals, which is to defund the police.
Defund the police.
And what would the impact be of defunding the police on communities of color?
Yeah, I mean, what would the impact be? It's going to be, you're going to see the impact socioeconomically, right? So the people that are supporting this stuff, people that live in gated communities and have their own security guards, there'll be no impact. But we're seeing what that impact is right now in the inner cities. We're seeing in New York City when I think they reported 2 weeks ago, a 267% increase in shootings and killings compared to the year before. That's what the impact is going to be.
Right.
There's not just this random vacuum that happens when you go, okay, we're going to get rid of the police, right? It doesn't mean that all of a sudden nothing happens. Somebody rises to take their place. That's going to be gangs that take those places, right? Because people are still going to look for some sort of a protection. This is the stuff that we got rid of in the 80s when New York City was really bad, right? Getting rid of the gang culture. You're seeing a return to that right now. We're seeing 1-year-olds being killed in the street. By the way, those 1-year-olds and those babies that are being shot and killed in the streets because they can't get any control over Chicago and Baltimore and New York City, they're not being buried in gold caskets like George Floyd.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And that's how you know this is political. This is not about Black lives. Stop pretending this is about Black lives. Everything that they're doing, everything about their mission is to harm Black lives. On their website, they've listed, they want to go against and to conquer the nuclear family, right? I mean, they're against families. They're anti-family. Go read Karl Karl Marx, right? Go read the Communist Manifesto. That's exactly it. It literally mirrors everything, and all of the Communist Manifesto's goals is what Black Lives Matter is after. And why do they want to destroy the family? Because it's the only way that government can replace family, right? You have to make sure that there's nothing else. There can be nothing else that competes with the word of the government. There can be no God. There's a strong layer of atheism that we're seeing, right? There can be no religion, there can be no God, there can be no dad, there can be no mom, there can be only selfishness and narcissism and rioting and protesting and anger. And what we're seeing is a communist movement that is taking hold in America.
But that the idea of the destruction of the nuclear family being one of their goals, which you're right, it is. You know, it's interesting because you're one of a very few people who know that, because the media at large certainly doesn't talk about it. If the average Black American knew that the purpose of the so-called Black Lives Matter movement was the destruction of the nuclear family, would they be for it?
No, and that's really what I spell out in my book is no. This is everything that you're seeing is actually anti-Black. Black people are naturally very conservative, right? We are the most religious group in America, right? We are the only group that has what's called a Black church. I mean, it's so, it's an odd thing to say, what is the Black church? But there is a Black church. And the reason for that, the reason that we have such a stronghold on faith and on family is because it had to mean so much to us because of our earlier oppressions. I mean, even in the Reconstruction era following slavery, the number one thing that Black Americans did when they got their rights back was get married. They went and they looked for long lost relatives that were traded off onto different plantations. This stuff meant so much to Black America. Yeah. And now we're seeing an organization that was not put together by Black people, that is not funded by Black people, right? That money is not going to Black people, that is trying to strip away all of those things and say that they're doing it in the name of progressivism and because they want to be against racism. When actually, they're looking at the old playbook of what Democrats did when they had us as slaves and reintroducing it under this guise of progressivism.